to week 4 of mobile APIs and frameworks. So we're talking about APIs. We've talked about third-party APIs with the Pokemon or the Pokedex API. That assignment, let me just check so I get the due date correct. Assignment 1 for this course, which is the Pokemon, is due tonight at 11:59 p.m. So remember, you're making a website that shows let me just see if I can pull it up here. There it is, assignment 1 PDF. I'll share my screen so it's easier for people who are watching the recording. So it's 14% of your mark. Here it is. Remember, you're making a Pokemon website that's going to look something like this. And when I click one of these Pokemon, it's going to load all of the specs or the specifications in a DOM element on the page, like a paragraph or a H1 or something. And then when I click, if there's multiple abilities, if I click one of those abilities, then it will load all of the abilities here into the page, okay? And then that would work for all of these. So a little example is Pokedex.org. They have more than 5, obviously, and you can click one, and then it opens up all of the information that you can get about these Pokemon, all of their abilities, all of their attacks, their strengths, and pretty cool stuff. So if you want to go and build something this intense, that would be awesome. That would definitely get you an A plus, 100% in the mark for this project. But you don't have to go this intense. There's a lot of Pokemon here. Look at that. It's crazy. So yes, remember that is due tonight at 11:59, and then Monday is the mobile web project. Cool. Any questions about this before I move on? No questions? Cool. Nina's good with it. DC, you had a who was one of you had a question. I think it was. Maybe it was Brendan. I can't remember. I think I answered your question though.
The images one?
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
I asked that, yeah.
Yes, you asked me about the images. Yeah. So you can load, I just wanted to bring it back up while we were actually in the class because you asked it this morning, I think, and over email. So you can load the images from a static folder if you wish, and then you can load them from online. Like if you go here and then right click and then, view, inspect this element or something, and then you get the actual SRC of the image. Oh, he said he was using Pokemon.com. Let's go here. If I go to Pokemon.com and then I right click on one of these, okay, let's get out of this for a sec. If I go to one of these Pokemon, he was loading the images like this. You can right click, copy image address, and then if you paste that, you can just take it from here and load it like dynamically. So if you wanted to load your images that way too, you could. If you can get them through the
You're not sharing your screen, by the way.
oh sheesh. Whoops. Thank you. I will share my screen. Always forget about that. Thank you, Nina. You can see that? Now you can see that. There you go. You can load them from here. So all I did was I went to Pokemon.com, Pokedex, and then I right clicked on here, copied the image address, and then you just paste it. And you could load it, do your SRC to this web address. You can also try to use the Poke API loading images, but if you can't get it working, then that's not a big deal. It would be cool if you could figure that out. I haven't had a chance to actually look it up myself and get it working on my own computer, but through the API that is. But
I
yeah.
tried doing this, but it was not working.
Yeah, I'd be interested. Like if you can take part of whatever your code is at right now, it's not working, but everything else is. If you can load that into a separate repo on GitHub, and then like I can look at it, and then you can finish your project on your main whatever branch or even like do a totally
So
separate repository, then I could take a look at the one that's it's not working on and try to get it.
there is a line at the end of this document. You can scroll down. Okay, so there is an image URI. So I tried loading that image URI, but it says error 404. No, the last one.
This?
Yeah.
Okay. Try. I wonder if they have an updated version of their V2. It's interesting. Let's see. Hit next here. jQuery mobile list view. They've got their image working there. 25 Pikachu. See if the web example is working. Pokemon. Pokemon. Okay. Well, maybe their thing for the images is broken. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about it too much. You can just load them statically from your own folder because it doesn't look like it's working there. So okay, good to know. All right. So who remembers what we worked on last week? Who can tell me? Nina or DC? I'll pick one of you, but you can also volunteer.
We learn about Node.js and API from that.
Totally. And making our own API, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. And so basically Node.js, what is Node.js?
Basically like a hosting service where you can put your API and we can access that.
Totally. Yep. So like we ran it from our shell here with npm start, right? And then it hosted it on port 4000. Cool. We also talked about something called Express. We didn't really use Express much, but who can tell me what Express is? Nina, I'll pick you this time.
Is that where we created like a database and stuff? Can't really remember much.
Almost, almost. That starts with an M, if you can remember the name of it. Do you remember what the database we used was? Mongo. Mongo is the database that we used. So MongoDB, we actually used the cloud Atlas, which we created a cluster in online, right? So you can sign back into that if you want. I think I just used my Google account. Pretty sure I did. Awesome. Cool. Yes. So basically, Express, what it is it gives us methods when we're creating our API. So for each HTTP verb, so get, post, set, and all of those, we can use a template that Express generates to interact with those. So it basically, Express is used to make the API. It's the server-side logic, in other words. So basically here, let me see if I can pull up an example. So if we go here, we use Express a little bit, right? Like this, use express.json. This route or this slash, so you go to like my website, 127.0.0.1 port 4000, and we're at the slash right now, like just the home. Basically, is going to be returning, see how it says message API is still working fine? API is still working fine. So basically, it will handle different HTTP requests at a specific URL. So I could set, let's try this here, slash test. Test is still working fine, okay? And then we will restart the server. It started on port 4000. Refresh this. If I go to slash test, we can see here, test is still working fine. So that's Express. Basically, Express is allowing us to do that with the routes and the different URLs, okay? And then, yes, like you said, Node.js is basically a JavaScript runtime that's built on Chrome, and it allows us to execute JavaScript on a web browser. So it also has API services that we use, kind of integrates with Express. Yeah. So let's keep on going with our example. So do you guys remember? Let's see my collection here. I think I had another one. If you log into your MongoDB, and then I signed in, I'm pretty sure I used my other email. Let's see here. Google. Just gonna log in here. Cool. So remember, we created a user on our cluster. We had to create a cluster first, right? By clicking this button. And then in database access, we created a user, and then we added a password, and then you can edit the password if you want to right here. And then in our cluster, we made a collection. We called the collection example, and then we had a user's document inside of it. Okay, so there's no actual data in here yet. There's just something that can hold data. And then what we did in clusters was we used our connect string, connect your application, and we took this, and then we replaced it with our username and password. So remember in db.js, we made this db connection string const. It's basically a variable that would hold my username, my password, and then my actual cluster URL right here. Example, that one, the collection name. Right, so everyone got that working, and what it should do when you do npm start is it should say connected to DB right there. So everyone got that, right? So see if you can get your code up running, get connected to your database, log in, because we're going to keep on working on this. We're going to add some other routes. We're going to start creating our API. We're going to start making this a bit more complicated. Cool. You're good to go, Nina. Awesome. DC, just throw me a thumbs up when you're ready to go. Awesome. Okay. Okay. So where are we? Let's see. So we've got our index.js, db.js, and package.json. And this is where we specify what packages we're going to use. Mongoose is what allows us to connect to Mongo. NodeMon is what allows us to restart our Node server every time. And then Express is what allows us to create our API calls. So here we connect to our database. And then we add db.js right here. Call that function. Because we exported it, we call that function here. And then we put it on a port. And I just created this. I mean, we can keep that, whatever, it's fine. And then we say this in the console, server started at port 4000. And if we connect to the DB, we say connected to DB. That's all that's going on in our app right now, right? Okay. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to make a couple folders here in our root folder. So we're going to want to make one folder called API. And then in API, you're going to want to make a couple more folders. So the first folder you're going to make is called controllers. Oops. That's not what I wanted to do. That. New folder. API. Expand that. New folder. Controllers. What's happening? And then models. And then routes. All right. Not sure that's how I want it to go. Open this up. See, I created the folder models inside of controller. 1 second. Just going to delete this. It should disappear there. I got to close this. There we go. Close the server. Recycle. Okay. Copy. And let's try this again. Paste. Business. Sorry guys, just 1 sec. There we go. I'm just creating a new folder, so it's copying all the Express.js stuff over. Cool. Okay. So in here, we're going to create a folder called API. Inside of that, we're going to create 3 folders. One's going to be called controllers. One's going to be called models. Oops, spelled that wrong. Blame that on my vaccine arm. And then one's going to be called routes. There we go. There's my typing. Awesome. And then I can go to VS Code, open this up correctly. Folder. And go up to week 4. Cool. There it is. So inside of API, we have 3 folders, controllers, models, and routes, and they're all empty right now. Perfect. Everyone's there. Sweet. I hope everyone's there. Awesome. Thumbs up. Sweet. Okay, cool. So now what we want to do is I'll explain what each of these is. So controllers. What controllers is going to be is all the methods that we use to actually receive requests and responses when someone visits a particular route on our API. So if you go to like /Pokemon /25 or whatever, you're going to have a route that handles the /Pokemon. And then if you have a /Pokemon /ability /167, you're going to have a different route that handles that. So routes is going to be the actual URL themselves. So good way to explain this is like this is a route, right? But instead of just using res.send, we're going to use like gets or posts, okay? And then the routes require the controllers, because the controllers are what's actually going to be doing the work. So it's going to take the request or the response and send it back and forth in JSON. Okay, the route is just going to be like what exists on the server at a particular address, and then the controller does the work. And then models is going to be like a schema sort of thing that is represented for Mongo to store JSON objects or JavaScript object notation. So you're going to create a model of an item or a task or a list or something like that. So if it was a person, you'd have the model of like all the value name pairs. So like age, first name, last name, height, whatever. And then you'd create this schema for what you want your data to be structured. Right? Cool. Okay. Let's get this. Correct. Okay. So let's go into models. Let's create our models first. We'll create a new model. And what do we want to store? We can create a to-do list model. Easiest.js. Okay. And in here, you'll have an empty JS file. And then in routes, might as well create all our files at the same time. We're going to create to-do list routes.js. And then we're going to also create to-do list controllers.js. To-do list controller.js. Okay. So we've got all our controller, route, and model. I wonder if there's a good visual illustration that I can pull up for you guys on. Let's see. Illustration. It's kind of like the MVC thing here. So you got your database, your Mongo, you've got your model, which is your schema that puts it into it. Your controller interacts with your routes and moves the things either to the database or to the view, right? So the controller is kind of the middle guy, the middleman, and then the routes are what the user actually types in to make the request. That's pretty good. I like that. All right. Okay. So what is our model going to be for our to-do list? Okay, so let's start with use strict. That's just using strict JavaScript. And we're going to create a var for our mongoose so that we can require the mongoose dependency. Okay, and then var schema equals, and now we can call the mongoose dependency we just created. And this, we're going to use the schema object. Can I hover over it and show you? Let's look that up though. Mongoose.schema, just so we can understand a bit more about this, okay? So mongoose.schema, basically you're creating a new schema object, and then you can create however you want your object to look inside of the curly braces. So to create a model, not model, we want a schema. Let's see. So the types of schema types that you can make are string, number, date, buffer, boolean, mixed, object ID, array, map, and decimal 128. Yeah, so here's an example right here. Let's see. I think that's all I wanted to bring up. Okay. Okay. Okay, so we've got our schema. So now we can make our
use strict does. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, sorry.
What does use strict does? The first line which we wrote.
I believe it just is it's like the syntax or whatever with the JavaScript. Let's see. older versions of JavaScript. Yeah, the syntax for declaring strict mode. That's a literal expression ignored by earlier versions of JavaScript. Let's see. I think it's like when you're declaring variables and all this stuff, it's like you have to type, like there's loose languages and strict languages. So it's like strong type and loose type. So strong type, you always have to end with a specific syntax with like a semicolon or a bracket and all this stuff. If you don't have use strict, I think JavaScript doesn't care, right? JavaScript is like very loosely typed. Whereas like if you have to strictly type JavaScript, you have to end each line with a semicolon. And does that make sense? Like, if you use Java,
Yeah, yeah.
you have to use the specific syntax. So here, let's see. This will call, yes, that's right. So in JavaScript, if you don't have the use strict, um, this will just automatically, like if you pretend that this wasn't there, that would just create the variable. But using strict basically says you have to use var x equals. But like people used to do JavaScript all the time where they would just do x equals this, and then it would like initially it would just create x as you tell it what x is. Whereas now you have to say like function my function var y. You can't just say y. Um, Here, yeah, see, like that's how people used to do it. Cool.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right. All right. So we're gonna make the schema for our task for our to-do list. It's not how you spell schema. Task schema equals new schema. All right. So this is where we can decide what we want in it. So name is going to be the type of task, string, required. Kindly enter the name of the task. All right, let's see here. And then we'll do just trying to decide here. We'll create one for date. Date dot now. And then we can do an array for the type. Okay. So I've created a couple different things. The first one we're going to use is just like the task name, and it's just going to be the name of your task. You're also going to be able to create the date of your task, and by default, basically, it will just use date.now. So it'll just get the current date. And then status. So like if your task has been pending or ongoing or completed, and by default, it'll be pending. Cool. And then at the very end, we're going to export our models. And we will export them to the name tasks, and then we pass task schema. Cool. So that's what we want to export it to. Cool. So that's what our model will look like. Okay, so let's create a route in our to-do list routes. So again, we're going to do use strict and we're going to create a var here that's going to require our controller that we haven't actually coded in anything yet. But this is going to basically be running with the app is the controller. It interacts with everything. So var to-do list require controllers. That's the folder it's in slash to list controller. Yes. So our to-do list variable is referencing this file right here, which we haven't actually coded anything in. Okay. So we'll create one route right now. It's just going to get our tasks, right? Now we don't have any tasks yet, so well, yeah, you'll see what this is actually kind of cool. So app.route. So app is our own app, and we're creating a route in our Node.js app, and it's as simple as just typing it. So like we did in index.js here, app.get slash requests and response. Request hasn't been used at all, so it's only going to do the response. API is still working fine. So like when you view it in the browser, it's just going to do this. APIs or test or whatever you're visiting is still working fine. Oops. Oh, I never actually opened my shell window here and did end start. Should be on port 1000. Cool. API is still working fine. So if we go to our routes, it's very similar. We're going to do slash tasks. That just makes sense for a to-do list. And then here we define, this is kind of like, this is Express, where we're going to start using Express. The HTTP method. So like when you use Postman, you have the options of like get, post, delete, put, and all of those. So this is where you're going to do dot get, okay? And then you're going to call the method in the controller that's going to get the tasks. So remember here, we have these methods: get, post, put, patch, delete. So right now we're going to want to do dot get, and then we're going to call the variable that we created for our controller, and then dot, and then the name of the method that will get the tasks. So for us, that method doesn't exist yet, but we're going to just put it in here for now, okay? And end that in a semicolon. So list tasks, right? If we go to our controllers now, we're going to want to create that method that we are calling now, list tasks. So in controllers, same thing, use strict. We're going to create a variable for our mongoose again. Just in case we need to use it to get some data. And then we're going to create our task object from mongoose.model tasks. And you remember, we exported that tasks right here into mongoose model tasks. So this object is going to be saved into this object here now, tasks. At least that structure will be saved. Okay. So we've got that. So we're going to want to use something called the exports function. I want to see if we can pull up a thing to read a little bit about it. Oops. JS export module. Okay. So we are going to be using this exports dot, and basically we're attaching properties or methods to it. So we're going to be attaching the method that we are calling from here, list tasks, and we want to export that task, or sorry, that method so that it can be called from another file. So list tasks. Oops. That's what the exports does. Right? Exports list tasks. Make sure you spell it the same. Okay, and then it's going to equal, and we're going to create the function here. So we always have a request and a response. Request is if you want to request data, and a response is what you give back to the user. So this function is basically going to, remember, it's going to be acting like the middleman. It's either going to be sending the request to the database, or once it sends the request, it's going to be responding back with that JSON object to us at the view. Cool. So those are the arguments we're going to be passing it. So we're going to do task, and this is the Mongoose model now, right? So now we've got a couple methods that we can use here. Fine. Now, can I get more? There's a callback and then an error. Let's see if we can read the documentation on this as well. Mongoose find model find method. Okay, so check this out. Model.find. So that's what we're doing. So just so I explain it properly here, the parameters we can pass it is an object ID, string or an array of strings, an object itself, and then a callback function, and it will return a query. So it finds documents in our database, it casts it to match the model schema. So here we can see this is going to find all the documents when you just do myModel.find. This is going to find all documents that are named John and have an age of 18. This is going to find them John, age of 18, and pass it to a callback function. So what does that mean, a callback function? Who wants to take a shot at it? Daria or Nina, 50-50. Nobody? The way I think of a callback function is, oh, I was gonna say, I can't think of the word right now. Like an event handler kind of thing, or event listener, if you know what that is. So it's a function that is passed into another function as an argument. Okay? So you're passing executable code as the argument to other code. And then basically, oh, where did I go? Right here. He's passing this function as one of the arguments. And then the results here will get passed back into it. So as docs. And that's what we're going to kind of be doing, because then you can actually use that variable to access your data. Cool. So we're using the task.find. Now remember, we want to find all of them. So we're going to do that. We're not going to do like where tasks equals this name or this or that. So it's going to find, oh, here, this is cool. We can do the up or down arrows. We can pass the callback error and then docs. We can pass filter. So, and then we can pass options. So I think we're going to be doing kind of something like this first one. We're going to get all of our documents, comma, and now we're going to pass the callback function that's going to save either the error if it doesn't get anything, or it's going to save the object in the task object. So we're passing a function, an anonymous function. We're going to pass it with its own error and then variable called task that will save our results into, okay? So if there is an error, what we're going to do is have our response, okay? So that's what this is, response dot send error. So we want to see the error on our screen. Now, that first line, if error, res.send error, okay? We don't have to have curly braces around it because it will only run this. And then it will continue on the code. If there is no error, then it will just do this next line. You could put it in curly braces if you want. So res.json task. So we want to pass whatever information we're getting into JSON. It will be coming as JSON from the database anyways. Okay, so we close that and close that. Okay, so this is going to list all of them. It's going to get all of our objects. Any questions? You're good, you're good. Okay. So just to explain a little bit more difference between the res.send and the res.json, res.send function will set the content type to text or HTML, which means the client will treat it as text. So we'll be able to see the error and it will return that response to us. And then the res.json function will basically keep the content type header as JSON so that it will treat the response string as a valid JSON object. And then it returns the response to the client as well, okay? So if there's an error, it'll show us the error in HTML. If there's JSON and it returns successfully, it'll return it in JSON. Cool, so we're gonna save that. We've got our route / tasks. We've got our model. So we've got a name. Let's see if we're missing anything or if this will work. I think we can try it. No, not yet. Okay. So now we're going to go to our server or our index.js. All right. So we initiate our Mongo server. We use Express. We put it on this port. Get rid of this test. Use Express. API is working fine. Server started at port here. I want to make sure in our Mongo server using new URL parser, yes. Okay. app.useExpress.json, so that's going to make sure that we're using JSON, and then I'm going to also add, also going to add this property, URL encoded. Okay, true. Okay, so now what we want to do is here, we want to import our routes from the routes.js file and register our routes. So what we're going to do first is create a var for routes equals require and we're going to import. Remember, it's in ./API /routes/ to-do list routes.js. I don't think we need the .js. All right, and then routes app. So that will register the routes with our Node.js app. Cool, so now if we save that, we run this, oh, we got an error. Module is not defined, so I obviously misspelled module somewhere. Where did it say the error was? To list routes JS3. S3 now. Module. .export. Okay, better. App is not defined. To list routes JS8. S8 app. Okay. It should be. Export. Are you guys getting any of these errors?
Getting the same error.
Okay, that's good. Or at least we're in the same boat. Oh, I know why. Because, so this module.export function app, it is not using app because this is in its own braces. So what we have to do is bring this brace down below and wrap our route inside of it, right? If that makes sense. And now you can see this app is being used. It was saying app was not defined. Now it is because it's all within this bracket. So I'll save that. See if this starts. Another crash. Okay. Routes is not a function. Index.js 25. Routes. Routes is not a function. Var routes. That's all I'm doing. Routes app. Should work. Just require maybe some of those. Okay. Let's see. Express require express. If I try this. Okay. It's like it doesn't recognize that I've made this a variable. Let's see. Routes is not a function. Do you guys also get the routes is not a function error?
Yeah, the same one.
Okay. Sorry guys, I'm just gonna try to figure this out. Require. App.use use app. Trying to figure this out. I don't think this is one that I can Google, but we'll see it. Routes is not a function. What do we have to do? Use strict. There's no app.route that you're parsing. Let's use strict var.router express.router get. App.get, that's what I'm doing. Express dot. If you guys want to try to figure this out too, and we can just debug it, it should work. I think I'm just missing a simple thing. Express routing, here we go. So these are how the URIs respond to client requests. So var express we have, var app equals express. Do we have that? Const app equals express. Yes, we do. Okay, respond to hello world app.get res.send. Route methods. So app.get. Route paths. Did I do res.send to do this? Res.send, yes, I did. Res.send. Not JS. Okay, well, we can take a little 10-minute break anyways because it's 4 o'clock. I'll try to figure this out. If you guys want to keep trying to debug it with me on your break or whatever, go grab a coffee or something. I'll be back at 4:11 and we will keep on trying to figure out what is wrong here. Okay? Sounds good. Cool. All right, see you guys in 10. All right, welcome back, guys. So,
Hello.
hello, hello. I just started the recording again. Welcome back. So I did figure out a couple errors. So here we go. We're still working on it. There's still a couple things that I need to get working, but I missed an S, the letter S, right here. So it shouldn't be module.export. It should be module.exports with an S. So make sure you do that. And then everything else is working fine. I tried adding some of this, like var router express.router. Router is just, you can see here, all I did was instead of calling app.get, I did router.get, but either works. I'm just going to ignore this for now. Just that was something that I was trying. So yeah, this is still the same. I just changed this to an S, and you can see how it changed the syntax to be proper. So module.exports. If I run it, it's still crashing, but there's a different error now. So it's saying schema hasn't been registered for model tasks. Use mongoose.model name schema. So if I go to model here, this should also probably be exports. It's probably the same error. And then schema hasn't been registered for model tasks. Let's see module.exports. Mongoose.model tasks task schema. I wonder if I did export anywhere else. Exports. You guys can double check my exports. exports. Module.exports, that's good. That's working. You guys have the same error as me now?
I'm getting the same error still.
Okay, you are. Yeah. Well, we're on the same page then. That's good. Mongoose.schema. I think I probably just typed something wrong again. Module. Want this to be this. Module.exports mongoose.model. Yes. That's good. Tasks and task schema. Yes. So let's see what the error was again. Schema hasn't been registered for model tasks. So where am I getting it? Task equals mongoose model tasks. Controller task equals mongoose model tasks. Right, and then if we go to, just gonna search that that error up here. This is debugging in the finest. This is really useful stuff to be able to learn. Schema hasn't been registered for model tasks or model. Let's see what that mongoose schema hasn't been registered for model. Okay, so what does this mean? It's not an issue with model export. The same issue. The real issue is that the require statement. The real issue is that require statement for the models. So here, var mongoose equals require dot connect require or below the route dependencies. Simply move the dependencies above the routes dependencies. The MongoDB dependencies above the route dependencies. I think ours are. Let's try that. Let's just check. Our route dependencies. Code over a little bit. Var mongoose require const mongoose require mongoose. Visual.express, yeah. Express. Yeah, I think that that's all in the right order. This guy, he said he wrote the reference as user when it was lowercase user. The creation of the schema. Okay, that could be it. Let's take a look at our creation of our schema. Task schema with a capital T. Make sure I'm spelling it correctly. Yes. Tasks, tasks. Okay. I know I had issues with this before where it wouldn't create the information on the database, and I had to create one record manually, and then it would create the records after that. So, but it should still connect to everything and run it all. Mongoose schema, mongoose model. Wire, okay. Hmm. Working. Error still. Schema hasn't been registered for model mongoose.model name schema. Yes, that's what I did. Schema. Stop model. Dot exports. JS 6 line 30. It's interesting. 21. I wonder if I spelled something wrong. Double check your spelling. Missing schema error name. Anything on your end, guys?
Haven't found anything yet.
Module.exports mongoose.model with a capital T tasks to declare your first model with the correct typo. Exports equals schema. I'm doing tasks, capital T. Tasks, capital T. Task dot find. I'm just going to try something out of curiosity. I'm going to add something to the collection here. Just because I have a feeling if I insert a document here and I just do give it the same syntax like name, what I want, insert. If I do that, now if I reload this, schema hasn't been tasks. The object is here now. To-do list model.js. Sheesh. Sorry, guys. This worked when I did the to-do list model. To-do list model. Equals task equals mongoose. correct? Ah, I think I see. Task equals create model loading. Okay, so I don't know if we've made a reference to this file anywhere, right? I don't think we have anything that calls to-do list model, do we? I don't think we do. So what we want to do, hopefully, this model, right up here by our, even before we initiate our Mongoose server, we're going to want to create a var and call it task and make it require our to-do list model.js file, right? Okay, and then that should hopefully do something. Let's see. So error now, unexpected token const. Oh yeah, I have that. Does work? npm start. Let's see. Ah, there it is. Okay, I feel glad. I feel good that we figured it out. Let me know if that works for you guys. So it's weird because this actually isn't going to be getting used by anything. I'm not referring it. It's declared as a value, but it's never read. But basically, it's just requiring this file here where we create our schema to be part of the app or on the server, right? So we're connected to the DB. The server has started at port 4000. Let me know if that works for you guys. I'm going to go to here, right? I'm going to refresh. And if I go to now, we created a route at /tasks that will get all of the tasks. Now, I have gone to my MongoDB, right? And I created that object or that document. So if I go to /tasks in here, well, we can see it's actually empty right now because maybe that doesn't actually fulfill the schema requirements. But what we can do, did that work for you guys when you guys added that variable?
Yep,
Nice.
working.
Cool. So it's connected. And then when you go to it in your browser, is it empty? It's empty. An empty array. Yes. Okay. So what I want to do quickly before we run out of time is create now a post method. So what we can do instead, we're going to get rid of the semicolon here, and then we're going to do dot post, and then same thing, use our to-do list controller, and then we're going to create a task. So we're going to create a method called create task, and I'm just going to end that there. We'll save it. Now it might error out on us here because there's no create task method in the controller, right? It's going to say it requires a callback function, but got nothing in your post method. So what we have to do now in our controller, over to our controller here, is now create something to create this method. So we can copy this, list tasks. It's going to be similar, slightly different. So what did we call it? We called it create task. So if I go here, I paste create task. So that way, if I copy paste, I'm not going to type it incorrectly. Same thing, it's going to pass a function as a callback. Now, what do we want to do? I'm going to erase this. So we've got a brand new, we're going to create a var, and this var is going to be our new task, and it's going to equal a new, and it's going to be a new task like this, one of these, a new mongoose schema. Okay, and then it's going to request a body. Let's see here. New underscore task dot save. It's going to pass a function. Cool. As the callback. And then if there's an error, what will happen is it will respond with the error in HTML. And if there's no error, it will respond with JSON with the task. So this time, what we're doing is we're creating a task, and we're creating a variable, passing whatever's in the body. So here we'll actually have to pass a header, right, for what the task is going to be. So we're going to use Postman, and then we'll call the save function when we do our post. So let's save that. See if that starts the server. Perfect, it does. So this is going to be at the same URL. If we go to our routes, it's still all under /tasks. It's just if you're post or if you're get. So we'll go to Postman. Now, it's not on my local host. It's actually running on, well, it is localhost, but what port is it? Port 4000. So we're going to go here. I'm going to put this in my local host. In Postman, I'm going to do post, and then I'm going to go to body. And in my body, because remember I did in the request.body, I'm doing xww form URL encoded. And then the key is going to be the name, and then the value is going to be whatever my task name is. And we're going to send it. Okay, and there we go. Status is pending. My task name is, and it did a created date. So that's all part of our schema. So if I go to my Atlas in my cloud right now, and I refresh this, there should be a second task that's created in here, or a second document, sorry, in my database. Said it was there. Collections to tasks. That's why. That is because, oh, that's why it didn't work. When I went to /tasks, that's why it was an empty array, because I have two databases in here, or two collections, one with the name of tasks and one with the name of users. The tasks one didn't exist until I just created that in Postman, but the users one I created manually, and that's where I input my test data ASDF, ASDF, ASDF. So that never would have shown. I'm going to drop that right now. The reason it put it into the tasks collection is if we look in our code here, we can see that in db.js, it went to example, and then it went to, is it in model, I believe. I'm trying to get rid of this sharing my screen thing. It's in my way. There we go. Oh, oh my goodness. There we go. It finally went away. The reason it went to the tasks, I want to say, is it? I want to try to find where we actually created that task. Here. I thought it was here, but that's just the example. So if you can if you figure it out, you can tell me, but it might have just created a lowercase version of whatever this is. I think that's how it works. It just automatically creates it. It's not based on that. It'd just be based on this here. Yeah, it must be. Cool. So if we go to our, if we reload this now, we should be able to see, there it is. So that's our get method, right? When we're just visiting. Did that work for you guys when you input some data? So I can post some more stuff. I can post testing. DC Nina, did that work for you? Thumbs up, or you can just unmute and talk to me if you want.
I'm still trying.
So I'm going to post another one. And there we go. Its default status is pending. All right. And then if we visit, let me know if it does work for you, Nina. If there's an error, I can try to help you. So there we go. Now I've got 2 of my tasks in here. And this is just basically my API, right? So now we can have another website or app that calls, this URL and loads the JSON data based on that. Because, that's all the Pokemon API is too. Like when you visit it, it's just this. And that's why you're able to, grab that data. Let's see here. Cool. Now by default, the created date is going to be this day, and by default, the status is going to be pending. If you want to change that, I think you can add the separate keys. Like I can add the key for status, and then what do they have to be? Pending, ongoing, or completed. I can add one for completed. And then I'll change the name to teach API class. Let's see if that works. There we go. So now if I go to my thing, I'm gonna just close this. Now if I go here and I refresh it, there it is, status is completed. And if I wanted to do the same thing, I could change the date as well. The ID, I'm not sure where the ID is created. That's just probably a MongoDB thing, like an individual document identifier. But did it work for you, DC? Did you get yours working?
Yep, it's working.
Awesome.
Can you
Cool.
go back to Postman?
Yes.
Just want to look at it. Okay, it's working. Thank you.
Awesome. Sweet. So you're able to you're able to post data and you're able to save data. So far, in terms of CRUD operations, we can create and we can read. So we've got CR. We need to still be able to update and we need to be able to delete before we've got it fully functional. So if you want to, you can look into that. We'll probably cover that next week. I might put the code on GitHub. But that's it for today. So really appreciate it. Don't forget the assignment due tonight and then also on Monday. Any questions? If not,
For
that's
Monday,
it.
it's the mobile app portfolio one.
Let me just double check here. So today's assignment is the API one. And then the one due Monday, geez, we had a bunch all at the same time, right? Assignment 1 for, oh, whoops, I'm in the wrong course. Mobile app portfolio. Yes, assignment 2 is due June 14th on Wednesday. It says Wednesday, but it's actually Monday. June 14th. Yes, you're correct, Nina. Thumbs up. Awesome. Any other questions? If not, enjoy your weekend, guys. Feel free to email me. I'll always be able to answer any questions over email. And yeah, thanks for coming to class.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Have a good
Bye.
weekend.
Take care.
You too. See ya. Bye.